We are back with an amazing Big Idea to Bestseller client launch episode. I'm very, very excited to talk with Mahwish and talk about her brand new book. This book is out, it's live. So make sure that when you're listening to this, you go pick up a copy of your book. And let me give you a little bit of insight into Mahwish because she is absolutely remarkable. Her book is incredibly inspiring. And I want to give you a little background on who she is before we break down how the book came to be, how amazing it is, and what you can expect to learn from it. So Mahwish Syed is a fashion and interior designer, a storyteller, and proud mother. She has dressed bodies and houses for more than 2 decades and continually circles back to her passion for mythology and symbolism, exploring in her work and writing the crossroads where textiles, fashion, decorative arts, and myth intersect. An award-winning designer, she has been celebrated for her anthropological approach, where she listens and observes her clients to fashion an environment that is both unique and magical. Her interdisciplinary talents have won her the regard of clients, architects, and top brands and galleries across the world. Her designs have been featured in the New York Times, Architectural Digest, Elle Decor, Hampton's Cottages and Gardens, Women's Wear Daily, and Time Out New York. She lives in Manhattan with her family. Mahwish, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, I'm really excited about this interview because your book has officially launched. We're in October, your book's out, and you've done it. All right. And I remember talking to you before you started this journey, and there were a few ideas, and you were trying to figure out where this book was going to go. And now here we are, book in hand, finished product, something that you're incredibly proud of. And so talk to us. What is the name of your book, and what is it all about?
The name of my book is Purgatory to Paradise: How Cancer Helped Me Design an Authentic Life.
And so I want to talk about this because, you mentioned how cancer is in there and your battle through there, and you have a very unique perspective on cancer, viewing it as beautiful and as a blessing. So did you always view that, or what was the backstory there of your journey with cancer, and how did that lead to this book?
Interestingly enough, and I touch on many different subjects, including epigenetics, I connected cancer with Hades. So the backbone of my book is mythological. And the reason why is ever since I was a little girl, I was really obsessed with Greek mythology, any kind of comparative mythology. And the story of Persephone and Hades really stood out. And I used that analogy to talk about death and cancer being basically a messenger that's telling me that something wasn't right. And my take on it was actually so positive because it allowed me to rebirth myself in a whole new way. And I linked my design philosophy, my philosophy as a parent with all of this. So I'm basically a weaver and a bridge builder, and I'm creating a bridge between how we frame our lives. How do we live an authentic life? What does authenticity really mean? Especially being an image maker in New York City for the last 20 plus years. What does that mean? It's about working from within, from designing from within. And so that's really what my anthropological approach is. I fix, basically, I'm able to look at you and observe and participate in your life in a way that enhances it even more, better than you could possibly imagine. So that's really my background.
And why mythology? Like, you talk a little bit about it, right? And you're equating cancer and Hades and Persephone, but where does your love for mythology come from? Because I know you incorporate it so much into your life.
It's my literature of the spirit. It's how I define meaning in my life, how meaning is basically the backbone to everything that I do. And it gives me a certain language that allows me to have a visual vocabulary, a beautiful poetic vocabulary, and then I translate that into design.
Now, this is what I think is really cool about your book and kind of how you went through this process is you took things that were really important to you, right? The journey of going through cancer. You took mythology, things that the literature of your spirit, as you just said, right? And you were able to not only combine those two pivotal things in your life, but you were also able to combine that with inspiration and wisdom to help other people, to give people inspiration, to give people a perspective. And that's a really cool thing that books allow us to do. It allows us to take our experiences, to take our passion, to take the good and the bad and the transformations that we've had, and then gift it to somebody else so that they can maybe have a different outlook on something that they go through, so that they can maybe learn something that they go through. So what can somebody, when they read your book, what are some of the things that they might be able to read in the book and be like, oh, I can implement that. I could change my perspective on that. What are some of those things that they can do?
Oh my God, what a great question, Jake. So I've been doing workshops with a local hospital here with cancer patients on using and implementing my design techniques to help elevate their experience as they're going through treatment. So that's one way. But the basic message and why the book is entitled Purgatory to Paradise is that we sometimes spend too much time living in default and we're waiting to live and we don't pull the trigger on things that we really resonate with. So cancer gave me the permission to just kind of boot me out of that zone and say, oh my gosh, I got to live this life. I got to live it as best as I can. So from a designer's perspective, embracing color. I have simple tips in the book that help people no matter where they are, whether they're dealing with illness or not. But if they want to elevate their environment because it affects you, they can create their paradise right now.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And it's cool how you're already leveraging the book for various opportunities, right? You mentioned the book. Because you've written the book, now you're into hospitals talking to different people. You have people that are general readers who, whether or not they have cancer or have had cancer, they can read this book and be like, you know what? I need to kick my butt into gear. Because I think something that we do as a society, and I don't want to make light of any illness or anything, but sometimes we feel we have to wait for something like that to happen before we make this change. And I want to challenge everyone that's listening, and this is why your book's so great, is you don't have to wait for those moments. But sometimes you have to be aware of the thoughts that can come from those moments, from somebody who has experienced it like you, to be able to say, oh, I'm aware. I know how to make the change now. And that's what your book does really, really great. Now, when you talk about it, we talked about some of the things that you've gone through and some of the things that you've loved in mythology and your cancer journey that have helped with the book. But also you talk a lot about designing. And what you do is you're a designer, right? And so you design bodies and houses, like your bio had said, but you also help people design their authentic life, their life in integrity, their life full of values. So how do we do that? How do we design our life in a way that we're proud of, that we're excited about living every day?
Basically, you start from what aligns with your values, right? What are your values? And basically, the contrast in this world right now is whether our actions align with the values that we have, right? We may say we want to live a beautiful life, but if we're not, eating well, if we're not taking care of our bodies, then we're not living a beautiful life. So how well can you do that? And I'm very practical. I'm a mother, I'm a designer, I'm a entrepreneur, and I try to break it down in a way that anyone at any given part of their life can actually implement a lot of these life philosophies.
Hmm.
And that's a real huge pleasure of mine.
Is there a story that you share in the book? I find that a lot of authors have like one or two stories that like is always top of mind that they really loved sharing or writing about. Is there anything in your book that you were like, oh, I'm so glad I got to share this story?
Oh my gosh. I think I talk about my son. I talk about how, as a parent, um, we tend to overprotect our children. And for me, living in authenticity was actually sharing my truth of my cancer with him. So there's a story in there where I talk about how I told him about my cancer. And I use the analogy of my body being a beautiful, fertile garden. and that, weeds grow in this garden. And, you know, I likened the tumor to a weed and we're just going to pluck it out. And so I was able to use a lot of visual metaphors and to explain from a mother standpoint. And in that way, I find there's a lot of beautiful wisdom that anyone can use.
I love that story, and it's so beautiful because you always tend to take metaphors to a new level. And that's something that's really cool because it makes the book that much more interesting. Is you don't just tell a story that's boring. You tell a story and you have something about it that is the seeds blooming. It's mythology. It's enjoying. And so for all the readers that have read your book or that will continue to read your book, they're going to have a unique reading experience. And I think that's something really, really cool because a lot of nonfiction books are very cut and dry. And I think you've done a really great job of showcasing your journey, adding your personality to it, but also making it feel like the reader's on an adventure with you. And I think that's a really cool thing. So real quick, how do people get the book and how do we learn all about the book in Purgatory to Paradise?
Well, it's on Amazon. You can pick up an ebook or the physical copy. And by the way, there's photographs in there. The ebook, you will see beautiful connections and symbolisms that link and weave all these topics together. So I'm a visual person. I had to throw in the symbology, explaining a lot of my ideas. So yeah, it's out there. And please, it would be really terrific if let me know how you enjoy it, Jake.
Amazing, amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of you creating this book. All right, we just talked about how amazing this book is. We talked about what it's all about, some of your favorite stories, some of the action items that people can get in your book. But I want to talk about the process of actually writing your book. What made you say, the time is now, I want to create this masterpiece?
It's so great. I had been writing this book. I had been writing a version of this book even before I had cancer. And what I didn't realize is the story, I ended up embodying the very story that I was writing through my cancer. And so my fall into the underworld, my fall into Hades with the cancer and all the life lessons that came out, it transformed. There was an alchemical transformation where I knew something big was coming and I had to share this beautiful wisdom. These, I call them Persephone seeds of wisdom, these seeds of wisdom with everyone, because at the end of the day, Jake, we can bring beauty into the world. And we have so many treasures within each and every one of us. But if we don't share those treasures, then they die with us. And so I really wanted to share my wisdom with people. And I knew, especially with this birthday of mine coming up, that that was it. I was going to celebrate my own rebirth and the writing of this book together.
That's a wonderful way to frame it. And as you got started in this journey of creating the book and working with us, what was your favorite part of the book writing process?
I love the community. I love the fact that we were in the trenches together and you've created such a vibrant spirit around the process. You kind of demystified it. Because if I had done this all on my own, I would still be like wandering around the labyrinth, you know? So you basically, I use the words, Theseus's golden thread. You held the thread, Jake. You had the thread to kind of guide us through the twists and the turns of the labyrinth of this process and allow us to come to the other side with something that we can hold in our hands, which I think is just like massive. It's really great.
Yeah, it's cool that you say that because, there were a lot of people who came through the program with you at the same time, and you guys all have your books coming out around similar times. You're on each other's launch teams, you're buying each other's books, you're sharing each other's books, and that's a really cool thing because writing a book is a challenging process. And it makes it a little bit easier when someone like me who, as you said, demystifies it, but it's still hard. And so to have other people with you along the journey who aren't just saying like, "Yay, you got this," but who are saying, oh shoot, I screwed up on this part, I got to redo it, or oh my gosh, what are you guys doing for that? How long's your rough draft? Like, you start to really get to be with that person, and you really get to step into your own greatness, which I think is so important. So how long did it take you to actually write your rough draft? Do you remember how long it took you?
Honestly, not long. Because the book, and you and I had talked about this. I had my huge, chart and everything. I decided to write from that moment on, and I would say it was just a few months. I would say 3 months to from start to finish of, because it ended up becoming a whole different creature. It was the synthesis of my wisdom now versus my wisdom then, which has changed and evolved. And basically, I'm setting the seeds in this book that will be subsequent bigger tomes, if you may, that will extrapolate a little bit more of the themes that I'm talking about. But this book was so much fun to write, which, by the way, I would wake up really early in the morning, before dawn, and light my candles and have my little ritual and my coffee and write before even the sun came up. So I really enjoyed that. And that has become like a regular ritual for me.
That's really amazing. How did you make this ritual, you're getting up in the early morning, it's become a part of you. How did it feel when you were like, I did it. I finished the book. I'm done. I have this story. It's no longer a 7 foot poster board in my house. It's no longer journals and journals that I've been waiting on for years. It's here. It's in my hand. How did that feel when the book was officially completed and you were like, I did it?
Unbelievable. Words can't even describe how satisfying, how gratifying it was to say, I've written this. I'm good. This is done. Because you can continue perfecting and fine tuning and all re-editing and doing that stuff, but done is better than perfect. And I often say perfection is the farthest point from authenticity. And if I'm talking about being authentic, then it's all in the doing of it. And having had that done, oh my God, I have so many blessings like throwing through the screen at you, Jake, because you have really been a steward for me, navigating treacherous waters. And I haven't even talked about my breakup. I mean, it was crazy what a community and what a beautiful oasis I found in what you've created. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool when somebody can take everything that they've worked on and make it something that's tangible, right? And this book, it's something that I've said to you a million times, and for everyone that's listening, I say this all the time. It's bigger than a book, right? And until you actually begin the process, maybe you have an idea for a book, maybe you've wanted to write a book, maybe you've tried it but it hasn't stuck and you haven't finished it. It's bigger than a book. You will learn more about yourself through this process. You will learn how to shape the story. You will create new rituals. You will find community. You will be able to speak in hospitals. There's so much more that goes into it than just saying, I'm doing this book. And you're a perfect example. And I'll use your kind of analogies here is you've bloomed and you've blossomed into somebody that came in with, oh my gosh, I have all these ideas. I have all this weight that I'm carrying around these ideas. It's weighing me down to you're feeling free. You have a book tying in all your passions, all your love, all your journey. I mean, you've taken your life story, your life work, turned it into something where you've designed, using your career, you've designed an incredible book for people based on your experience of going through cancer, with your love for mythology and your desire to help people live an authentic life. That is so good. And that is so, so, so powerful, Maush. And I really want you to understand that you've done this and you have it. And people now around the world get an opportunity to learn about you in that way and learn about themselves in that way. And I think that it just goes back to this thing is like, it's bigger than a book. It's bigger than the pages on the paper because of what it means to you and the readers who get to experience it.
Beautifully said, Jake. And it's who I became in the process of writing this with you that I just embrace, because I feel like it's been peeling the layers of the onion, and I'm finally coming more pure, more authentic in sharing my vulnerabilities and sharing my truths and sharing my story. Because a lot of this stuff, it's not easy. And I think we're all in it together because we know how hard life can be, right? And there's this desire, this fire inside our hearts to help people. And at the end of the day, that's really, that was a wonderful experience for me, is who I became in the process.
And what would you say to somebody if they're listening to this and like, Mahwish, I'm so like, this is exciting to me. Like, I'm excited and I want to write a book. What would you say to somebody now that you've gone through the process? You're a published author. What would you say to somebody who's considering writing a book or maybe has notes from the last few years? What would you say to that person based on your journey?
It's so possible. It's already written. It's just going through and committing to yourself in a way that really it grounds you. And it does. Once you're grounded, think about your roots going into this beautiful fertile soil, then you rise up, right? And you bloom. And so in that process, you will bloom for sure.
I love it. I love it. So one more time, Purgatory to Paradise. How do we get the book? It's available ebook, paperback. Where's the best place to get it? And how can we follow along your journey and continue to learn from you, experience your greatness, and potentially even work with you down the road?
So the book is available on Amazon in paperback and ebook form. And you can follow me on Instagram. It's Mahwish Syed Designs. And I also have my website, msd-ny.com, and /book, where you can opt in to give me your email and your name. And that way I can basically share a lot of new developments and workshops that I'm doing, and new content.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you guys make sure to get a copy of the book. Mahwish has a wealth of knowledge. She has had an incredibly successful career, crazy life experiences, and this is a book that will definitely make you think about the way you design your life. And that's something that we should be thinking more about. So Mahwish, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your gifts with us, sharing your book with the world. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jake.
Awesome. So guys, if you love this episode, first of all, go get a copy of Purgatory to Paradise. You're going to really enjoy this book. Go on Amazon, do the dang thing, and make that happen. And if you really want to take it to the next level, let Mahwish know what part of this episode really inspired you, or let her know what your favorite chapter of her book is. That's an unbelievable way to show us that you care, that you listen, and we can develop some amazing friendships from that standpoint. So with that said, everybody, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Mahwish, I appreciate you for being here, and let's go make it a great day. I'll talk to you later, everybody. Peace.